There must be time.
There it is. All right.
Oh, there we go.
If you would rise, pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Kushner,
Here.
Osborne,
Here.
Latari. Here. Jones.
Here.
Euler.
Here. Item 3, approval of city council minutes. Move to approve.
Kushner,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Latari.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Euler.
Yes. Item 4, adoption of agenda.
I move to approve adoption as presented. No, not the adoption, the agenda.
Okay. Kushner,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Latari.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 5.1, proclamation for Fire Prevention Week, October 6th through 12th, 2024. Generated false. I heard it. I heard it when coming in. Fire Prevention Week, October 6th through 12th, 2024. Proclamation. Whereas the city of Warrensburg is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our city. And whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally. And homes are the locations where people are at greatest risk from fire. And whereas home fires killed more than 2,700 people in the United States in 2022, according to the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA. And fire departments in the United States responded to 360,000 home fires. And whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires almost in half. Whereas Warrensburg residents should install smoke alarms, including smoke alarms that meet the needs of those with sensory or physical disabilities as needed in every sleeping room, outside each separate sleeping area, and on every level of the home. And whereas residents who regularly test smoke alarms and have planned and practice a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. And whereas Warrensburg firefighters are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fire and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. Now therefore, I, Bruce D. Euler, Mayor of the City of Warrensburg, along with City Council, do hereby proclaim October 6th through 12th, 2024 as Fire Prevention Week. And I urge all Warrensburg citizens to make sure their homes have working smoke alarms. Dated the 23rd day of September, 2024.
For the growth slower, Hanson.
He just said he thought you took a call so you could avoid this.
Great, thanks, you, General. Thank you, Chief.
Can we do it over? No. Item 6. An ordinance 6.1, ordinance amending ordinance 5892 concerning the adopted fiscal year 2025 annual budget beginning October 1, 2024, concerning the solid waste management fund and the water pollution control fund, presented by Barbara Carroll, Director of Community Development, and Courtney Christensen, Interim HR Finance Director.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Welcome to all of you, and thank you for having us tonight. Barbara wrote a absolutely beautiful, it flowed, it was great, amendment for the solid waste fund, and then I added this little clunky thing on that I apologize for. So I'm going first because hers is gonna flow into the rest of the presentation better. The water pollution control fund, you've heard it, you've been talking about it, about the 22 million that is coming through the state revolving fund, that we did the increase in the rates to cover the payments for all of that. Forgot to put it in the budget. So the 22 million's not in there, so I needed to add it in. So that's what the amendment is. It is to estimate the revenues as bond proceeds coming in, and then showing that it will be expended. It'll actually be expended probably over 20 months, but we'll put it all in here. So that is what that's for. We have also updated the capital improvement page that's in the back of your budget book. And you will be getting a new budget book depending on what happens tonight. And on that page, that capital improvement area, I just wanted to direct it to you because there's also been some questions. In the past, all those capital improvements were in each of the departments and those kinds of things. It was kind of hard to see exactly how much you were actually investing in this community for the public. And so we put all of that into that back appendix. And on those pages, then you see every single department's, every single division's capital improvements all in one place. And so tonight, when we give you the added book after the amendments, then you will see that this has now been added in there. So instead of that 45 million, we're now at 67 million being expended on capital infrastructure for the city of Warrensburg in 2025. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Two weeks ago at your city council meeting, you approved a contract with Constable Sanitation for the collection of residential solid waste services here in the city of Warrensburg. And with that decision, then it's now appropriate for the city to adopt and include the revenues and expenditures to provide that service for the city in your annual budget. And so you have that as part of the budget amendment that is in front of you this evening that goes with the water pollution control amendment details that Courtney just outlined. Revenues for the solid waste management fund will come primarily from the monthly service fees provided by the citizens for the service at their property. For the coming fiscal year, that will be 7 months. So we will have service from March 1 to September 30th in the fiscal 25 budget. And that is both your revenues would come in for 7 months as well as your expenses for the service are going to be for 7 months. But for the whole fund will be for 12 months. Those will start October 1 if the budget amendment is approved, because we have expenses I'll detail here in a minute that will need to start prior to the service itself actually starting. So we'll have 7 months of revenues from the monthly fees, which that will not be enough to cover 12 months of a fund. So for that reason, the other major source of funding for fiscal year 25 will need to be a loan from the general fund balance, which is currently at around 8 million. And so staff is proposing a $450,000 loan transfer for fiscal year 25. 115,000 of it is needed to make to cover expenses, to make it balance. The other 335,000 would only be used if we would need to activate the transition plan. And again, the transition plan would be if the current haulers pull out of the market prematurely before March 1, then we will need to go into almost immediate services with Constable. And that would be for trash collection only. And so there's a reduced rate for that, but it still would cost approximately $78,000 a month. And so that 335,000 is to cover those if that is necessary. So the 115,000 would be necessary just to start providing service on March 1. The expenses that have been included in the budget amendment, you have that amendment in front of you, which provides specific detail line item amounts. I've grouped some of them and highlighted them here in the staff report. Personnel expenses that are roughly 161, almost $162,000 for 2 staff positions, the utility billing specialist we've discussed, and the solid waste coordinator. Portion of the city's annual audit, because it's a separate fund, so like water pollution control, it will cover a portion of that annual audit. The monthly payment to constable, which we are estimating at the $26. We're hoping they are able to negotiate that $26.80 down to the $26. That is still in works. So it's at $26 a month, 7 months, 6,000 dwelling units for approximately 1,092,000. The education campaign that we've discussed, that's one of them that's going to need to start immediately in early to mid-October. That is included at 20,000. Software configuration and licensing, annual licenses at 5,200. Those are going to start prior to March 1. I need to get a couple computers and an iPad. We'll start that prior to March 1. Purchase of a vehicle at 50,000. And then I show that general fund transfer where we're taking the transfer, the 4.5% of the operating and transferring back to the general fund. So for next year, well, this year, fiscal 25, that's estimated at 61,000. And then the 335,000 if the transition plan is activated. So with that, I would say that in future years, fiscal 26 and beyond, we do not anticipate needing a transfer from the general fund. In fact, in the future years, we would start paying back a payment annually until all funds are replaced in that general fund balance. So the future budget years include a $50,000 payment back to the general fund balance. So if we only end up needing the 115,000 for fiscal 25, we should be paid back to the general fund balance within 2 to 3 budget years. The rest of the future years are set to balance without any kind of loan. That's just a startup loan money. Proposal is in keeping with the adopted strategic plan. I think Courtney outlined the total fiscal impact of both pieces of the budget amendment, and staff would recommend approval. Happy to answer any questions.
I have a question, but I'm not sure if this is the right time to discuss it. Related to potential conversation that staff might have with constable related to potentially expanding what the definition of their hardship rate would be beyond physical hardship to age or income level to potentially address some of the concerns that our citizens expressed a couple of weeks ago that were not necessarily related to their physical ability to move the cart, but to what could be for them a fairly significant increase in cost to them, depending on who they're contracted with now. And I understand that could be a can of worms and lots of details, and how would we verify that folks were of a certain income without violating their privacy? I'd just like to propose that be a conversation that be held with constable, if that's appropriate, and if they have experience in the past of a hardship related to income and not simply physical ability.
We can look to see if we can have that conversation. That would be a change order to the contract, so it would have to be negotiated and can impact the economies of scale we saw in the pricing we did receive. So it could change rates for others, because that will change the math for them.
Yeah.
Your questions?
Well, I follow Susie, so I think that's a conversation, I'll say making a note to have with them.
I've made a note,
Some information back to you on that. Yeah. The 450,000, I'm sorry, you said 115,000 we need to start up and the balance 335 is just there as a emergency if we had to, or.
For the transition plan.
For the
if we
transition.
Activate that at any point.
And so that would, if we don't have to touch that, that would come back in this year, but
If we don't have to touch that, we wouldn't transfer
we
it.
wouldn't transfer.
We
Okay.
will only
The
transfer
115.
the 115.
Okay. And you say that would get paid back in 2 years.
It would be a
Roughly.
little over 2 years. If we
Okay.
do 50,000 a year, it would be, it would impact 3 budget years.
Questions?
No other questions.
Thank you.
The second reading.
Motion to move second reading by title only.
Kushner.
Yeah.
Osborne,
Yes.
Latari,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
and ordinance amending ordinance 5892 concerning the adopted fiscal year 2025 annual budget beginning October 1, 2024, concerning the Solid Waste Management Fund and the Water Pollution Control Fund. This is for adoption or rejection. Kushner,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Latari,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 6.2, an ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to execute contracts with civic organizations for fiscal year 2025 annual services, presented by Carolyn. How do I pronounce your last name? Tui? Tui, okay. Carolyn Tui, thank you. Our new finance officer. Glad to have you up front here with us. Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, good evening, council members. So before you, we had a few organizations and nonprofit organizations that have partnered with the city over the years, providing services to the city, members of the city. And the letter you have before you is details the agreements that we've had with them over the years, and just moving on to FY25 at the same funding level that they had at FY24. Yeah. And there's also an attachment to the funding levels over the past 3 years.
I did have one follow-up question related to oats, and I know we discussed this, and I apologize that I can't remember and I didn't take the time to find it. That there was some question about if we did not increase their contract amount,
Yeah.
that there would be a decrease in services.
Yeah,
And I'm just
Friday.
wondering if you could remind me what that is.
You know that? Yeah. But their new contract is from Mondays to Thursdays. Before it would be Mondays through Friday, so they just reduced their Friday service. But
Okay, so it's the same contract amount as
Yeah,
previously, but
previously,
they're just not gonna be providing that service on Fridays.
yes.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
Move to approve ordinance
To second reading.
to second reading by title.
Thank you, sir. Kushner,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Latari,
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to execute contracts with civic organizations for fiscal year 2025 annual services. This is for adoption or rejection. Kushner,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Latari,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 6.3, an ordinance authorizing the city clerk and city manager to execute a development agreement with CMK Properties LLC, presented by Danielle Doolin, city manager.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for the opportunity to be here. Before you was an ordinance, was for CMK Properties. Earlier this year, CMK Properties LLC approached the city about developing a tractor supply company in town. The tractor supply company is currently under construction. It is located in the southwest corner of the Hawthorne and McGuire roundabout. What they asked for some assistance to help with the cost of public improvements. So as part of this development, there is curb and gutter being added to Holden Street, as well as a sidewalk that is being added to Holden Street. Additionally, there were stormwater infrastructure that needed to be moved in the right of way to accommodate sidewalk, curb, and gutter. And then also with the Tractor Supply facility and the increase in impervious surface, there is a need for on-site stormwater detention, but that is, so while that's on private property, that is still considered a public improvement that is eligible for public assistance. After conversations with the company, we've determined that probably the best way for us to go about aiding that public improvement is with a sales tax revenue sharing agreement. The sales tax revenue sharing agreement that is before you tonight is a total of $100,920.51. The development agreement with CMK Property is 100% of the city's portion of the sales tax. So we will give them 100% of any of our portion of the sales tax that is generated. So that includes our general, and that also includes our. Can you remember, did we also include our half-cent capital in there? Parks, or is it just our general 1%?
I think it's all that, it's all the.
It's all of it. Okay, it's all of our sales tax that's included. So that includes our 1% for our general fund, as well as our capital improvement and for parks, as Courtney is saying back here, reminding me. So it's all of the city's sales tax. So it's 100% of that in the first year. And then in the second year, it's 50% of that. But the amount will not exceed that $100,920.51. And it will also not exceed years 1 and 2. So whichever comes first, the end of year 2, or we reach that $100,000 max that we have set out there. This is strategic plan. So this is, again, investment in our infrastructure, as well as growth and investment for the recruitment of commercial retail businesses in our city. Reimbursement is only made as those sales tax comes in. So like I said, it's either going to be for years 1 and 2, or until that $100,000 is met. It will be distributed quarterly as those sales tax are generated and received by the city. We will then disperse them out quarterly to CMK Properties LLC. So I am happy to stand for any questions. Mr. Rob Foss is here from CMK Properties LLC to answer any questions you all may have about this project as well.
I like doing it this way. I like that they have to generate the sales tax in order to get it back. Yeah, I like this.
Now, that's the same, you're the owner of the building and the developer?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you've done this in other cities too, I guess. You're the ones that.
This is the second time that,
Oh, okay.
that we've done this. Yeah. And, you know, every state, every program, have their differences. So, first time navigating through, and Danielle's been fantastic, as have your consultants. We explored other programs. But this was really the only one at the end of the day that was going to be feasible. There's a cost, bonding, that kind of thing, and a lot of details to comply with.
Sure. But you're the developer, but not the owner of the business?
Yeah, we are.
Oh, you own the
Yeah.
Tractor Supply, okay.
We own the real estate.
You own the real estate, right?
We have a lease with Tractor Supply.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. All right.
For the business.
Correct. Yeah, Tractor Supply signs a lease with us.
Right.
And in return, we buy the property, build the building, and they pay rent after they open up.
Okay, so you'll be in Warrensburg at the business.
I won't be.
No.
They'll just be sending me a check.
Okay,
For rent.
Sure.
all right, I see.
And where are
Okay.
you out of? I'm sorry.
Nashville.
Nashville, okay. All right. Oh. Welcome to Warrensburg, and
Oh, yes.
what, you have a target date? Just curious.
They go up fast.
The walls are all up, I think, already.
Yeah, roof's on. You know, we're probably about 90 days away. I would think at this point.
That's
You
good.
know, I'll try to take some pictures today, but it was a little messy.
Yeah, we're glad for the mess today. We needed rains.
We did.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
Yep.
very great.
Any questions? Any other
No,
questions?
thanks, good.
Thank you.
So this is just the general, it could include the capital because it is a capital item. This one in particular is just the general, it could not include parks, however, because that one's earmarked just for parks purposes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Since the earmark taxes can only go for those purposes, so it could include, just for your future reference, it could include capital, sales taxes if it's a capital item. But in this case, it's just the general.
Thank you, Judge. I apologize for not having that straight in my head when I presented, but appreciate the bailout.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. Glad to have Tractor Supply.
Glad to bring it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to move ordinance to second reading by title only.
Kushner.
Yeah.
Osborne,
Yes.
Latari,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Euler.
Yes,
An ordinance authorizing the city clerk and city manager to execute a development agreement with CMK Properties LLC. This is for adoption or rejection. Kushner.
Yeah.
Osborne.
Yes.
Latari.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Euler.
yes.
Thank you.
Item 6.4, an ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to execute guaranteed maximum price GMP 1 for project 1 of the McGuire Street Corridor Upgrade Project, presented by Danielle Dillon.
Good night, guys. So very exciting, this project that we've been working on, Rethink McGuire, project that this community has been working on, since MoDOT gifted us, Highway 13, and we renamed it McGuire, since we got a Tiger grant in 2012, since we did a phase 1A study in 2016, since we've applied for grants and have done additional studies, additional design and planning. Now is when we finally have a price, we have a schedule for the McGuire Street project. And so I'm very excited to have this in front of you all this evening. There have been a lot of moving pieces, and I know there have been lots of questions about phasing and schedule. And so now we're finally at a point where we can share some of that with you all. So as you know, we originally have broken the Rethink McGuire project into 2 projects. So we have our project, which is from approximately Ferguson Street to Broad Street. So that is project 1. That is all local right of way, all city owned right of way from there. This project 2 is from Ferguson North to cover the interchange over the bridge for Highway 50. So that is project 2. That is separate from the work. There is some city owned right of way in there, but there's also MoDOT owned right of way in project 2. So this project 1 that we are looking at right now is all local city owned right of way. We have broken project 1 into 3 phases. So the first phase is from just south of North Street. So just south of North Street to Broad Street. It does not include the bridge over the railroad. However, it is all of those things that we've been talking about, your curb, your gutter, repaving of the street, the stormwater things that we are looking at. The sidewalks, relocating the utilities to overhead utilities to back of curb, working with American Water, gas, getting all those utilities relocated as necessary. Working on our access management, reducing driveways or narrowing driveways, and all those traffic signal upgrades, all those things that we've been talking about over the several months. Phase 2 of project 1 is going to be that underground stormwater detention that we talked about in front of that shopping center that includes Scooters, where King Chef Buffet is cutting up, that shopping center that we have right there. That is phase 2. We decided to pull that out completely since we are seeking separate funding from Missouri Department of Natural Resources for the emerging contaminants grant project or water project that we have. So we're pulling that out separately. And then phase 3 is sort of the bookends for that underground detention project that we're working on. So the intersection of North and McGuire, and then sort of everything north of where that underground storm is to Ferguson Street. So that's gonna be phase 3 of project 1. Sorry, it's confusing, but just a lot of moving pieces as we've talked about, for this project. So what you have in front of you today is, the guaranteed maximum price 1. So just as a reminder, we are using the construction manager at risk project delivery method. So we have brought our engineer on board. We have our general manager or our construction manager at risk on board. We have all been working together. And then before kind of final design is in there. And now they are giving us a guaranteed maximum price. So we have a risk register that's in there. So if there's anything unexpected that comes up, we're gonna be able to manage that within this guaranteed maximum price, but we will not be coming back to you all unless we significantly change the scope of work. So this is the most that we will pay. As a reminder, if there are any savings that come through the project as we get into it, if there's things that are not realized on the risk register, or if there are things that change with design and we find a better way to do those things, and there are savings that are realized, that savings will be shared between the city and the construction manager at risk. So the construction manager at risk will get to keep 25% of their savings, and the city will get to keep 75% of those savings. That will probably be to put into another phase of the project or even project 2, if we do realize any of those savings. So guaranteed maximum price 1 includes all of the things that we've been talking about: your curb, the gutter, the sidewalks, the repaving of the streets, the traffic signal upgrades for phase 1. It also includes bid alternate 3. So that was a stormwater alternate that we have talked about. So there is underground storm in 2 locations. One is on Colton Street. I don't know if anyone had an opportunity to drive McGuire since we've been getting all this rain and kind of looking at any of the standing water. That has been, but sorry. You know, Brenda, where are the 2 underground storm detentions? Colton Street, where's the second one?
For the alternate, or for the alternate 3, it's inlet and pipe system on McGuire, and then it connects to the existing system on Colt.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yep.
So it is the bid alternate number 3 is the inlets and pipes on McGuire Street, as Brenda just shared, and then it connects to the existing system on Colton. And then it also includes the sanitary sewer project that we have talking about. Sanitary sewer is for the whole project, so not just phase 1. This is for phases 1, 2, and 3, that whole area. And that price did come in higher than we anticipated. So we were, I won't necessarily say what we were anticipating. We did call off the enterprise lift station and kind of said we were going to reallocate those funds to go towards the McGuire Street sanitary sewer. That price did come in at about $2.7 million versus the 1.2 that we had set aside from the enterprise lift station. The water pollution control fund is healthy. And so there is money that is available for the sanitary sewer on McGuire. So we will be able to do that, but that is something that is a significant increase. Thankful that our water pollution control fund is healthy and that those funds are available for us to make that investment in that infrastructure so that we don't have to necessarily take it out of the general obligation bonds that we've issued for the road work on McGuire. One thing I did want to note in the memo that I have, you will see that the total guaranteed maximum price is $10,280,058.32. That breaks down roughly to about 7.1 for the road and stormwater work for phase 1, and actually 3.1 for the sanitary sewer to be paid out of your water pollution control fund. The difference in the numbers that I just shared you and what's in your packet memo, as we're looking at our risk register, we do have $400,000 in our risk register that is allocated in case we run into rock. So one of the things that we are concerned about with the sanitary sewer is just running into rock underneath the roadway. staff, the engineers, we kind of sat and we talked, is there a reason that sanitary sewer is so shallow below the road system already? And wanting to make sure that we are prepared if we do hit rock underneath there for that sanitary sewer. So while they're all in one place on the bid that we got from Capital, the city will be paying for them out of different funding sources, which is why we wanted to kind of call out where those two different dollar amounts are. We did get the schedule. So the schedule will start, sanitary sewer work will start about the middle of December. And it looks like the first time we will start to see road work take place will be in March of 2025. And that will be at the Railroad Bridge to Broad Street with construction for all of Project 1 wrapping up in December of 2025 for Project 1. I think I will stop talking there for a minute and answer any questions that you all have.
What an incredibly complex project. And thank you for the work you all have done to get this to this point before you leave us and move on. Just very appreciative. I do have a question, I'm not asking for a change order, but just for folks who might be interested, especially, and I know we've talked about this, there's been multiple public forums about this. But if there's a map or a listing of kind of the changes to some of the driveways or entries and exits along McGuire, just so folks can see what will be coming in the future related to that.
Yeah, so in your packet, we did include those engineering plans. I do know those are challenging to read, lots of different lines and numbers and letters.
I'm looking at them and
but I will also share, we actually do have a whole map hanging up in City Hall. We took the map that they presented at one of our open house meetings, and that's available hanging up in the public areas of City Hall for folks to come in and take a look at. And of course, if someone is interested and does want to talk to a staff member about that project, please, they are absolutely welcome to. We're happy to come out and walk you through it, because I do know when you're not used to looking at 3D things in 2D, it can help to have someone walk you through that. So that is always welcome to anyone who wants to come into City Hall and talk through it.
And who specifically should they talk to after this week?
So Joe Clifford is our project manager on that, but Kristen is absolutely up to speed on that. Okay. And Kristen Gorman, our new assistant city manager, is up to speed on all of that, as well as Joe. And then of course, Phil Adlich in Public Works as well. We talk about it a little bit. So, and I know even, so, you know, firefighters, police officers, folks who are coming in are always kind of stopping by and taking a look at it. So it is kind of cool. And you do see people do stop to take a minute to kind of see how it's gonna look. So.
And there were a lot of conversations over this period of time with the owners along the McGuire corridor. So
yeah,
there shouldn't be any surprises with the owners along the corridor.
And I'm not concerned about the owners. I'm just about the average citizen who's just curious what's going to change about how they get into their favorite, whatever it is.
Right. And so, and again, part of this whole process is communication is a huge piece of that. And part of our agreement that we have with Burns and McDonald is to have them working that communication piece for us. So we'll still have our hotline. We have our Rethink McGuire Facebook page. We have the newsletter that we do encourage folks to sign up for. But we're also working on getting magnets that we can stick on the sides of trucks that are out there doing work that has that hotline number on it. And I know that Travis with Capital has agreed to let us put stickers on the work folks' hats that are working for Capital, so that they can always just point to, hey, call this number. And that's how you'll get answers when we're going through construction. We've had a lot of really thoughtful communications, just Burns and McDonald's experience with other projects that they've worked on, things that we've learned along the way with projects that we've been working on. And of course, the Warrensburg legend that hits mailboxes once. It'll come out again in January 1st, May 1st, and then October 1. There will certainly be an update on the McGuire Street project in that January 1 issue. So Everyone should really be looking forward to the January 1 issue of the Warrensburg Legend because we will have solid waste and Rethink McGuire in there.
You mentioned a newsletter, sign up for a newsletter.
Yeah, so if you go to rethinkmcguire.com, you can sign up for a newsletter to be updated. I think it's a weekly update is what we're planning right now. For just what's changing along the corridor, access is gonna be changing, where we're gonna be at in the process, so
Okay,
Yeah.
and that'll be an electronic newsletter.
it is via email.
Okay, perfect. And then I just wanted to say, I'm really glad that we've discovered, it's unfortunate that we had to discover, but that we have discovered the issues with the sanitary sewer.
Yeah.
And that they're being fixed before we put the road down.
Yeah, you might explain again for the ones that haven't heard about this, but when were this, how old were those sewer lines and what did we find?
Yeah, so we were looking at sewer lines that were, original, probably, so about 50 to 60 years old, sanitary sewer lines. That were through there, they're clay. We did a video, of them, we cameraed them, a lot of them were in such poor condition that we were not even able to get the camera down. The sanitary sewer lines. They are not actually current standards that are required by the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. So a lot of them are 6 inches. And so we will be upgrading them to the 8-inch, which is now the minimum standard. And straightening them out, getting rid of some of the 90-degree angles that we have. We're just really upgrading and modernizing the sanitary sewer system that services all those businesses and residences along.
This information, I know we have the website, Rethink McGuire. Could they update now? I looked the other day and I noticed it hadn't been updated for a while. Is that something we're gonna, Brenda?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You want?
Oh, sure, bring Brenda up. Come on.
Pulling up here.
We haven't seen Brenda for a while. So,
She is an extension of our staff.
yeah,
Good to see you all again.
good to see you. Yep.
Yeah, now that construction will be kicking off, and we'll be working very closely with Travis's team at Capitol to get the schedule up on the website. And then also you'll start to see utility relocation happen within the next month. And we'll get some of that information out there too. Our team has been working with the utility companies to understand their schedule as well, so that we can get that information out to the public.
With the utility change that they start pretty soon, is there gonna be some lanes put in or and signage?
So there will be traffic control out there, and Joe will be working with the utility contact points to make sure that that's in place and appropriate. Each utility has their own contractors that will be doing the work. And so we're gonna do our best to coordinate with them and manage the situation.
And the power lines are going to be moved.
Yes, so the overhead power will be relocated to the back of the sidewalk. So right now it's right on the curb line. We've been working with Evergy to relocate those to the back of the sidewalk.
Excellent.
New poles, same poles?
New poles. There'll be new poles,
Alright.
and it'll be a combination of different heights of poles along the corridors to make sure that they can clear all the existing signs and structures safely.
So
So
that
that's
should,
one of the things that, sorry, Councilmember.
that should clean up some of the extra wires that seem to be up in the air that don't go anywhere.
That is correct. So as part of this process too, we've been coordinating with Brightspeed. So Joe's been actively talking with Brightspeed. Many of those poles will be coming down and they're moving underground and in several locations.
That's even better.
So
That was one of my next questions. I couldn't remember if anything was going underground or not. I know how expensive that is, but.
yes, have competing needs. with
Mhm.
support.
Yeah.
So the only thing I was gonna add is just that we are currently working with property owners on our temporary construction easements and those permanent utility easements. For us to be able to move those utility poles to the back of curb, so. Those conversations are moving along.
That's great.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Burns on my, no, thanks Brenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brenda.
I know the phone number.
Already. We should have came up with a jingle.
Yes. Are we ready? Motion, to move to second reading by title only.
Kushner,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Latari,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to execute guaranteed maximum price one, GMP one, for project one of the McGuire Street Corridor Upgrade Project. This is for adoption or rejection. Kushner,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Latari,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, item 7.1. See our neighbors from across the street almost. So, a resolution of the council of the city of Warrensburg accepting a proposal prepared by Mike Keith Insurance for property liability and cyber insurance for fiscal year 2025. I guess cyber we didn't have about 10 years ago, right? So. No. That's right. Thank you. Presented by Courtney Christensen.
Good evening. Yes, so last year we were able to, it actually started in 2022 when I was with the interim HR director, working with Mike Keith to move our year to our actual fiscal year, because before it was happening and we were splitting fiscal years for our policies. And so last year was our first year. This current year, we were our first year that we were completely on the fiscal year, which has had a big benefit in that because we were meeting before the adoption of the budget, we were able to get our new numbers, which they actually, just for the public, I know that you all are aware that Mike Keith, as our broker, actually goes out and bids all of this. That keeps us from having to do the RFPs and go through all of those bids. That's a service that they provide to us. So this has all been bid and they have picked the best bidders for us. And that's important for people to know, because the city has been with Mike Keith for quite a few years because they provide such a nice level of service. But it was also meant, because of it, we were able to meet with them before the budget was adopted, find out what the new pricing was going to be, and to include that pricing in the 25 budget that you adopted. Later tonight, when we go through year-end encumbrances, there are some adjustments, but that's due to the fact that we were able to buy quite a few pieces of new capital equipment. And then that has affected our rate that wasn't in there. And so I've adjusted the budgets for people so that we would have enough money for all of this for this next year. But as I said in my letter, and I won't go through all of that, but we are looking at an 8.6% annual increase for all of our services. This also includes terrorism. So while the terrorism coverage, the optional terrorism coverage, is included in the fire pack that the fire department has, the city council did make the decision that we would also pay the extra to have optional terrorism insurance in our regular pack, which is $1,002. It actually went down by $40, $1,209 for a year to have that kind of coverage. So we have cyber, which is also in our base, but then we do an optional. We have the fire pack, which makes it a lot less expensive to deal with the fire department, and they have a very specialized insurance policy for the kinds of things that they deal with. And then we have what everything else is. I had estimated at the lowest that we would get by when I did the presentation to you all at our retreat, 10% growth. So the 8.6 is just a really good surprise for all of us. And as I mentioned, several of them, and if you look at the sheet that has the summary in your packet, you will see that that several of them have gone down in price, like the inland marine, which is most of our vehicles. And then the optional tourism went down also, and then the fire pack went down. So we've had a good year there. We had many of them, three of them had a zero increase, which is really kind of unheard of. So it's a very good, from my analysis, it's a very, very good proposal for the city this year. They've done a lot of really good work, and it's really nice that it's tied to the fiscal year, so we don't have to cross those and have to worry about the things. So the staff, and as you know, Mr. Keith and Christian are here if you have any questions for them about any of this. I will say, because you have adopted, I know I talk about the capital improvement plan a lot, but I love the fact that you now have a document that you can work off of. You will notice that we have a lot of capital equipment in that list. So there will be during this year, as that capital equipment comes on and a piece of equipment that's from 2009 goes off, we will be during the year adding insurance and we'll be paying fees other than this. This is our base fee.
Right.
Okay, just so you know. And so next year, when you look at the comparison, you're gonna see that it went up some, like at the bottom line for the 25 year that would be in your first column. It's probably not gonna still say 545 because it will have gone up during the year as we've brought on new equipment, as we've completed capital improvement projects, those kinds of things. I just want to make sure that the public too, who's listening, understand those things change our numbers from today to next year because we're constantly making adjustments. We're getting rid of old things. We're buying new things. So, and that'll all be included. Do you have any questions for myself or for Mr. Keith
When do you leave us?
tonight?
I thought so. Okay, well, that's why I asked. Well, we thank you for your great work and it's been a pleasure working with you. We appreciate you. All the hard work and the good finance, got us in good financial shape. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? No. Okay.
Move to pass that resolution.
Kushner,
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
Latari.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 7.2, a resolution of the council of the city of Warrensburg adopting a master fee schedule and setting fees charged by the city. Presented by Jessica Vinderlo. All right, management analyst for Warrensburg. Thanks.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Thanks for the opportunity to present this item to you tonight. In your packets, you should have a copy of our proposed master fee schedule. So this has all the fees that we charge organized by category, and they have what the fee is for, the amount, and any additional information that serves as good context. For example, when their free renewal or inspection period is, or any kind of changes, like variations in the fee depending on like a formula or criteria and things like that. Staff's been working on this for a few months now, assessing the fees we currently charge for like licenses, permits, open records requests, all that fun stuff, and compiling them all into this one standard location. Prior, they were scattered amongst all these various ordinances and resolutions, so it was kind of hard to track them down and understand the fees. So this handy dandy schedule is beneficial from that transparency perspective. It's also helpful for continuity since everything is tying back to one place now. And it'll also be a nice tool for financial management when we go through the budget process every year if it's approved. So as far as content goes, most of the fees are remaining the same. They're flat from the prior. There are a few here with proposed increases though that I just want to kind of briefly go over. Most of these are ones that are related to development and construction. So things like driveway permits and rights of ways, street bores, there was more I had. And things with like construction of new sanitary sewers. So those are, we're increasing. Obviously that sector has experienced a lot of increases in recent years, and it's always the city's intention to be able to recoup our cost in providing those services. So some of those have been increased in line with inflation. Also some of the public safety fees, especially those related to like the DWI kind of test that we do, those were increased ever so slightly to be in line with the Missouri Highway Patrol, what they charge for the same services. And there was also one that was slightly decreased to match that same standard. And lastly, I just want to briefly note that while municipal court fines and some of the park fees are in here, that's for informational purposes. Those are set by the state and the park board respectively. So those aren't necessarily affected by or adopted by a resolution of this body. But since we want to have all the information in one place for the public fees, those are included in here as well, since it is a master fee schedule. So with that, staff recommends the approval of the resolution as presented. The handful of fee changes that I mentioned will go into effect October 1st, the start of the new fiscal year. Unless Courtney would also like to add anything, because she did a lot of the heavy lifting on this project. I'll stand for any questions.
So you're going to put this in a format. You're kind of grouping them all together where we can find them really easily. So they'll be up on the.
Yeah, I was gonna put it on the website so people can access it whenever they like.
It was quite long and covered a lot of information.
So that was
Yes,
cool. So, yeah.
yes, but it's divided up by, so you could find it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked it. Thank you for doing it.
Any questions for Jessica?
My only note would be that there were a few increases. And remember, we did not include any increases in the actual budget that was adopted. Because we didn't know what was gonna happen with all of this, so just so you know, so you may see a little growth in some of the revenue sources based upon now the new fee schedule.
Thanks. Okay, resolution.
Move to approve resolution.
Kushner,
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
Latari,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 8.1, mayoral appointments. Appoint Melanie Johnson as a member for Arts Commission for unexpired term through October 2027. And B, appoint Elizabeth Coleman as a member for Arts Commission for a 5-year term through October 2029.
I make a motion to approve the mayoral recommendations.
Kushner,
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
Latari,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
Thank you.
Liz, would you stand up? I don't know if everybody knows you. We just.
Hello. I came so I could. This is the before picture. 5 years is a long time. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for volunteering.
Appearances not listed on the agenda. There are none. Miscellaneous matters from the mayor and or city council. Danielle, if you'd stand up, we'd like to. You are leaving us. This is your last city council meeting for the city of Warrensburg. We just want to thank you so much for all you've done here. You'll be a hit, and I know Manhattan, Kansas, can't wait to get a hold of you, but we're gonna miss you.
Very much so.
You're very appreciated.
We know where to find you if we need to.
You wanted it.
I have one brief announcement just about a community event.
Sure.
All right. Some folks may know, but this Saturday is the Community Connection Fair, which is hosted by the Warrensburg School District. And it's an opportunity to come out and learn about a variety of different folks in the community. There'll be performances by local youth dance groups and the Micronesian community and a wide variety of things. So that's going to be, if it doesn't rain, it's going to be outside on the track between Sterling and the middle school. Otherwise, it will be inside Sterling if it's raining. So it's a fun event. It's really targeted for kids kind of K through 12, but anyone is welcome. There'll be lots of games and that kind of thing.
Since you have one, we have a proclamation we'll be giving Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock at the Pentecostal Church. It'll be for Morris Collins as we start a legacy fund for Morris Collins, who was a school teacher here and a beloved pastor in Warrensburg and everything. So we'll do a proclamation at 3 o'clock at the church and hope to start raising money to put a plaque out there by Howard School and out by the church. So anybody's welcome to that too.
Okay. Jamie, is next Saturday the Moonlight Market? Okay,
2028 at 4:30 to 7:30.
okay. Thank you. Can't miss that.
If I may, the 27th, there's a concert at the Star Theater, all free will donations starting at 7 p.m. to 8:30.
And who's performing?
With David and Jimmy Nace, with Jeff Porter from the Rainmakers and Norm Daler from the Elders. It'll be a good time.
It's a great group of musicians there.
6 o'clock with the performance at 7.
Yes. And that's all I have to say.
City staff updates. Community development.
I don't have anything.
City staff updates, fire department, presented by Ken Jennings, fire chief.
Good evening, Mayor and council.
Good evening.
A few months ago, was presenting an item that related to our emergency management capacity, and there were some questions that came up at the time, and we promised to come back and dedicate some time to giving a little broader overview of emergency management and its function in the city. So that time has come. We'll give you kind of the 30,000-foot view this evening. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask, and I'll try to scrap my brain for an answer. So, emergency management, the definition is just that managerial function, creates a framework in that assessment, preparation component for dealing with hazards and disasters. The mission of emergency management is to coordinate and integrate those activities and capabilities to prepare for, respond, and recover from emergencies due to all hazards. So those are the fabricated word for what it is. But we'll get into a little bit more of what it actually is and how we see it play out in our day to day. So a little history. 1803, kind of the first recorded piece of history where this where what we have today kind of started, is following a fire in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Over the next decade or century, actually, after that, there was over 100 times that they addressed disaster relief and just ad hoc legislation. So finally, in 1974, the Disaster Relief Act was passed, which authorized the president to provide federal assistance when requested by the governor. In 1979, FEMA was created. In 1988, they replaced the Disaster Relief Act with the Stafford Act, and that's built the framework, what we're familiar with today for the most part. Following 9/11, even though those pieces were in place, 9/11 exposed a lot of weaknesses in that realm of our world. So since 2001, FEMA has grown the programs, those resources, that stuff has grown. In 2005, following Katrina, again, a lot of holes were poked in the system that were worked out and improved upon to what we have today. So while it's never perfect, it has definitely improved over the last 25 years. And part of that is because emergency management really isn't in our vision until we need it, right? So that's always been kind of the combat that it faces. Some laws, some state statute, it just requires political subdivisions to have emergency management in place. There's different ways that can go about it. We've kind of gone back and forth in the history of Warrensburg. We've contracted that out and we've had it ourselves. We currently manage it ourselves. And really that's the best way to do the things that we need to do to make sure our community itself is prepared. So we work closely with Johnson County Emergency Management and connection to the state and the federal level. But that's kind of where that starts. We have our own code of ordinances in Chapter 7, which lays out declaration of emergencies, duties, powers, lines of succession, those types of things. And then the emergency operations plan. So the city manager, under those duty, powers, and responsibility, really holds all of the authority in declaring emergency when disasters are imminent or actually occur. City manager has the powers granted to the executive office by state statute and our ordinances to take steps necessary to ensure the health, safety, well-being of the people in the city limits. City manager is also in charge of defining a line of succession, just in case, the bad things happen or they're gone. And then the city manager shall appoint an emergency management coordinator, which has been under the charge of the fire chief for as long as we've had it. Some local resources, local and state resources. I mentioned Johnson County Emergency Management, and they provide different resources, resource management, some planning and training capabilities, a community emergency response team, CERT, and then the COAB, which we've talked about, I believe, which is what spawned this conversation, which is just community organizations, that those non-governmental organizations that we bring together to build those relationships before something bad happens. They all bring something different to the game, but we know how quickly the government resources, fire department, police department, public works, will all get overwhelmed if there is something, a disaster that happens. So we rely a lot on those private organizations and NGOs to be able to fill that gap. So that COAD was a huge step here within the last year in getting those resources put together. We also funnel a lot of our requests. They have to go through our local EMA to get to the state gets to the feds. So just kind of work up that ladder. State of Missouri also has a wide range of resources. They stand up their state EOC when we're anticipating weather events, things like that. So they have that piece in place, and then we would go through them for those federal requests if certain thresholds are met in disaster. Then at the federal level, they provide funding in those disaster declarations, those resources, and any other critical services that we may need to get through the disaster and then that recovery element. You may have heard me mention the LEOP, Local Emergency Operations Plan. We are currently reviewing that. It's up for review this year, and so I'll be bringing that to you early next year for adoption again. So instead of us writing our own and trying to marry everything together, we use Johnson County's, their EOP. We have our components within it, and then anything that isn't specifically addressed in that EOP, we have our own separate annex that covers those specific things. So that'll be coming in the next few months. Been reading through that the past several weeks. It's super fun. I can provide a link for it if you want to read it.
Nope.
Or you can take a look.
No, thank you.
Something following 9/11 was the National Incident Management System. So presidential directive established, hey, we need to be able to know how we communicate in these disasters. So it's spelled that out. There are different levels that you receive. So there is some educational component for members of council. If you're interested, we can get you that information. Just take a brief online course that kind of goes into a little bit more detail what I'm giving you the topical overview of tonight of how this system works. But all the way down to the field level, the crews in the field, incident commander, unified command post, all of that stuff is spelled out in NIMS. The Emergency Operations Center, which we brought forward to you a few meetings ago, again, using the joint center at Johnson County's EMA office. But this is where it's just a centralized location that all information during an event would come to be organized and disseminated out and make requests and organize that. So our emergency management structure, you have me, the emergency management coordinator, and then I have two deputy coordinators, which are the deputy fire chief and the division chief fire marshal, help me out in that day-to-day operation. So our key functions start at mitigation. So identifying those things that we can in the community to eliminate or reduce the risk of loss of life and property. So fortunately, where we are, there's not a whole lot of stuff like flood prevention where we need a bunch of levees, things like that. We can't really build a big tornado wall, but we can do other things like have outdoor warning siren systems, educational programs, generators, things like that on the beginning part of it. So we do have a hazard mitigation plan that we work on every few years as a county, and we identify those things that we need to work towards over that next 5-year period. So mitigation, preparing the community, obviously response when we need to, and then a big piece of this, and currently kind of our weakest element, is that recovery component. So as far as trying to educate people to be prepared, that part's been in play. The response piece we have covered pretty well, but that recovery, what does government continuity look like? What's getting things like grocery stores and banks and stuff back operating again so people can continue with their lives? So big piece there. I hit most of that stuff already. Just event planning is one that we've tried to be a little bit more active in over the past couple of years. So during some of our larger events, we have a little bit more detailed planning that goes along with that, and some unified command operations there to if anything, just be ready, since there are larger events, but also it's like any other exercise. The more you do it, the better you become. Resilient communities, that's our goal. So the fire department, police department, public works, all those emergency responding agencies can only do so much. So teaching people how to shelter in their homes, things that they're going to need during an event, how to take care of themselves those first 48 to 72 hours while we get more resources available is a huge piece of this puzzle. Governing body, your all's role is delegating that authority, setting those expectations, helping get the resources, secure those, and then entrusting a lot of that to happen. A lot of times you'll be that face with the public, between staff and the public, and just reassuring that and making sure that things are moving forward. But the stuff in the field happens just like it does every day. Keeps things moving good. Obviously, when something bad happens, people want to be involved. They want to be in the know to be able to spread that information. And within that incident command system that we have, that joint information sharing, that's how we get information out to you as our governing body to be able to share to your constituents. So some short-term goals that we have established for our emergency management, again, getting that LEOP, emergency operations plan, reviewed and adopted. Keep working on those large event exercises, the pre-incident recovery planning. So investing some time in what that recovery element looks like. So a big one that we'll start with first is just the continuity of government. We had to pick up if City Hall was no longer here. What happens? Where do we go? How do we set it back up? And integrating all those departments, especially IT, and getting us back up and running again. So looking at a lot more of that, and then running those exercises both through the EOC and then tabletopping that continuity of government exercise, and running some full scale exercises where we find a good slow Friday or something and kick everybody out of City Hall and say, go take sewer bills and make sure payroll gets made and those kind of things. So those are some of the immediate things that we're working on. Obviously, there's a lot more, but it's a small sliver of another department. It gets less than full time, so everything takes a little bit longer to get to, but it's definitely something we always keep our eye on and building to make sure that we're ready. Hope that answers questions.
Yes, thank you.
I have a question for you, Chief. So if we'd ever have a train derailment, tornado or something, you're the emergency coordinator, you would be the spokesperson for the city.
We, not necessarily. So within all of our plans.
No. I just kind of discussed this. I just want to.
We would establish, in our line of succession, we have a PIO established. So there will be somebody that's assigned to coordinate that information, both from the city's element. And then the city's PIO will be part of a joint information center. So our PIO, the county PIO, the state PIO, all of them will work together so that one coordinated message comes out. So that by design is to help minimize confusion and things of that sort. That way, we're not saying one message, the state's saying something else. All that comes together so that there's a unified message. I try to avoid camera at all costs.
You would do well. So I'm just glad it's taken care of, because I've been concerned. I see it happen in other cities, and sometimes it doesn't come off very professional or confused, or like you said, misinformation. So that's good that we got a plan in place. So thank you.
Thank you.
City staff updates presented for the last time, I guess. Martin Christian Center.
Right, okay, this is kind of a big one. You'll recall last year, for those of you who were on the council at that point in time, in October.
Excuse me, somebody's phone's going off. Could we turn off the sound? Who's ever, we need to silence the phones in here. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Maybe a tablet back there.
Or tablet, whatever the noise is. I'm sorry.
That's it. Last year in October, you did your first year end encumbrances where we came in and looked at our, the financial situation of the city. Looked at what was left to be expended, and looked at what wasn't planned for when we initially adopted the budget, or when you adopted the budget, and then we made plans for some of the use of that. So we did the same thing again this year. This year it was a little more successful because people knew what I was talking about in the management team. So got some more ideas about what was needed to be done. We also had the need, as we had talked about in the budget adoption, that to actually do all of the market adjustments for the phase two left us short of money to be able to do raises for the majority, for all of the employees, whereas the market adjustments in phase two were just for not very many employees. It was mostly to get people to the middle of their range if they had been with the city for 7 years or longer. And then it also had a few people just getting them to the bottom of their new range. So not a lot of people were going to get anything. So we really wanted to work hard. Danielle gave that direction. And so to do that, as I had told you, we removed some money that had been budgeted for expenditures in things like mostly consulting, contractual, those kinds of things, to help us to pay for that 3% salary increase. So that was $191,700 that was removed from the 25 budget to get those 3% in. And so part of this plan of this 817,000 is 191,700 to make whole those divisions and those departments by replacing that money with excess money from the 24 budget, which included funds, new revenues or increased revenues that came in, and then things that just weren't expended yet during the year. Each of the departments who had something removed were talked to and explained what had happened and where it would be put back in. So this is in accordance with that agreement and that promise to them that we would make them whole after this year's money. So what we will do is encumber those funds for them, and they'll be able to access those to expend those funds. In most cases, they're being put back in the exact same category that they were removed from. In a couple of small cases, I was asked to put it in somewhere, like if it was from a contractual, but they said, could you put it in contractual non-categorized, just in case, to give them a little more flexibility. Because it's a little harder with an encumbrance because it's actually for a specific purpose. Whereas when it's in a line item, you can expend it anywhere. It doesn't matter because it's fund accounting. So it gets a little more hard. So we did some of that. In addition to that, we had some transition planning. I think it's perfectly obvious we're in the middle of transition here with everything that's going on. And with transition and with you needing to hire a new city manager, you have a process you need to go through. You may have to pay travel for people. Those are the kinds of things that weren't budgeted, of course. You also have the need, Danielle brings a whole level of expertise, has brought in consultants, myself, to help with different things. Kristen, as you're acting, is going to need that same flexibility. And so Danielle had suggested that I should be looking for $350,000 in transition planning, just as might not be needed, but if it was, you wouldn't have to wonder how you were going to do that. And you would not have to take any money from fund balance. The whole point was not to use any fund balance in 25. You had already committed to the use of $422,000 in fund balance in the 24 budget when it was adopted last year. In addition to that, you committed to another $500,000 at the midterm, the mid-year budget amendment, which was related to the revolving loan fund, grant fund. That one has gone in and gone out and been paid back. So we will not be using that $500,000, but we are keeping in that $422 that was there from the beginning in the 24 budget, but nothing from the fund balance in the 25 budget. So those two things were kind of major, and you can see those. I wanted you to know where it was coming back in what their account code was, what it was for, and then where it fit in those categories. And the third category is planned expenditures. It has been a very, very busy year here. I know everybody has noticed it. There's been a lot going on. The departments have been incredibly busy. And with great leadership from the departments, we were able to be very, very flexible. And those management team members who worked with me to figure out what it is we could do to get in the 3% raises, what we could do to find funds for the transitioning, and what we could do to strengthen those departments for this coming year. And so out of that, we came up with $275,000 in year-end encumbrances of money that was not expended, but that there is a need for what didn't get done in the current year with everything that was going on. And so those are in there. So I think it's important to note that while that's $817,000, which is quite a bit of money, that still leaves $442,000 of unexpended funds showing up in the bottom line when you take your revenues and you take your expenditures. Okay. Out of that 442, 250,000 of that is going to cover purchase orders that are in process right now. So I have on 9/17, I ran a report, and then I estimated what they would need to get through the end of the year. Like we have another payroll this week. What would that cost? What would it cost to buy the supplies that many people buy, all of their office supplies at the end of the year? I wanted to make sure everybody had their funds to do that. So I went through and I padded all of their accounts, then looked at what was left. And that's how I got to the number that we started then moving back, that 817. Which left this 442. Well, in addition to that, I ran a report to see how many purchase orders were out there that have not started. So they're not showing up in my expense column. And so there's 250,000. Okay. So you could say, well, then what happens with the rest of this money? It will typically is either going to be used by adjusting journal entries from your auditor when they decide that, well, that expense should have been paid out of 24 money, not out of 25 when they come in probably December. I do have that proposal letter, but I have not read it totally yet. Sorry. And then they will make adjusting journal entries, and it's okay legally if they make more than what we actually have revenue left, but who wants that if we can, manage it on our own? And if anything isn't moved or whatever, it just falls to fund balance. And so in fact, your 422,000 will not be moved. It would be something less than that. Okay. And the same thing happens if the padding that I put in isn't all necessary. That's just going to lower how much it comes out of the fund balance that you budgeted, because we don't move that until the very end, just in case we don't need it. Okay. And so all of that will happen. The next thing that's going to happen, I just want you to understand that this isn't all just made up. It kind of seems like it at times. It's like a little game and it's a puzzle. I enjoy doing it because it's kind of like a puzzle, but they will wait to make these year-end encumbrances. We will go ahead and enter them, but we will not push the button. So those of us who know how to do it will do those things, get them ready to go, but they will wait until in October when the year is actually over and we have got all of our other POs that are already in there and other things that are expended, run the report again, see what is left, and then make adjustments. And we'll only encumber so that it still turns out to this picture, to the picture of 442, unless all of the purchases are already in there, and then it'll be that amount less that. Okay. So it's not something to, last year when I brought it to you, we were already at that point. We were in the end of October. I was running that report and saying, we definitely have this money left. And this time I'm estimating. So I wanted you to understand that there's a protection here, that it will not happen until you get to that same point again, where you're running this report because the year end is closed. And then these things will be done. Okay. So these are not a God-given promise
except for the 191,000, and you will have plenty of money to do the 191,000 to pay back everybody from the 3%. But I just wanted to kind of go over that and explain that to you. I do want you to know this is my last time here, but I have talked with Kristen, I've talked with Carolyn. Not only do they have my phone number, but I have agreed that I will be available to do small projects or work on things if they need me or help them through this ending, because I haven't been here very long and it's a lot. So I just wanted you to know, but technically I'm done, but I'm available. So after we get back from Scotland, which isn't until the middle of October. So, but I just wanted you all to know that there is a plan.
That's great.
And I think that, you know, Kristen's gonna do fantastic. You heard from Carolyn. She really knows what she's doing. Jessica is such an asset. I mean, you have a really good new team coming in, and but if they have questions or anything, but Danielle's always there. And then if they still need something, they can give me a call.
And Katie, you're just kind of an old timer now. So.
She is. Senior person.
I actually did have one question. Sorry, what a shock. I have a question. My dad could see me now. He'd be so proud I'm asking this question related to finance because not my strength. So the increases, which are fantastic, by the way, very grateful that you all have worked so hard to get city staff those very well-deserved increases and getting folks up even to the bottom of their pay range. It's extremely important. And so I want to make sure I understand the dollars for that increase came out of fiscal year 24 one-time money or no? So how is that being funded going forward if it was an excess from the budget year that we're in now is going to be used?
Okay, so it'll be, I believe it will be okay. It is, because you're right, you normally wouldn't want to use one-time monies, those kinds of things. So you have a couple of things that all came together at the same time. So if you consider the transition planning money, which won't be necessary next year, hopefully, because you'll still have Kristen even when you hire a new person, right? You're still going to have Carolyn, so you're not going to have as many needs there. So that money would be available. And if you look at what your amount was, and you'll notice that all of those end of year encumbrances are all in the general fund. 110 is our general fund. None of the other funds. Chris is always on top of all of his finances. He is always knowing what's going on. They are doing their purchase orders. They are getting their orders under their belt. A lot of the departments are doing it. And that's one reason why I would say that some of this isn't going to happen like it looks, because they're doing it now. So we won't have to do a year end. They'll do it, but they'll watch it. Water and pollution control has a lot on their plate. There's a lot of stuff going on for them. So anyway, that's why it's only the general fund. So understand that this is only general fund share of the raises, only general fund share of the market is what you're dealing with right here. But between those two things, that is just about $300,000, and you had $350,000 easily that could go towards this transition planning. That money is going to be available. Your revenues are up next year compared to this year without a fund balance transfer. So it should be fine. I mean, it should not be a major problem. So I'm not seeing that as, when you look at the growth of that 3% compared to, which is really what it ends up being, compared to what your growth in your revenues are, you should be just fine. You really should. And with the forecast and how it's projected, if you'll remember, you were one of the few cities I've ever done that for that came out positive. I mean, seriously, always short. Might only be 100,000, but it was always negative, negative, negative. And you guys were positive all the way until the very last year. So you're going to be, it'll be okay. But you're right. It's a good question because we couldn't
we couldn't always take from the departments,
Right.
so. But
Thank you for
they have
pointing
plenty of money when we do our planned expenditures. A lot of them, I was offering them more money and they said, I really don't need that. And I was like, really? Okay. I mean, seriously, departments actually told me that. The chief told me that. Gave me back $50,000. He said, I absolutely don't need that. It's the right place. So.
Thank you.
Thanks, Courtney.
Thank you, Courtney.
Okay. Closed session.
It's okay, I just wanted
Okay.
to say a few things.
Yes.
Kind of wrap it up here. There was a question that came from one of your colleagues, Councilmember Jones, actually asked for just kind of a quick rundown of where we were with the McGuire Street project financially. We talk a lot about the numbers, but understanding that we issued 17 million in general obligation bonds. And kind of where are we at in that process? We've been issuing contracts, but we never really get a full picture of that. So I wanted to give a quick rundown of that. So yes, we issued $17 million in 2021 and 2022. So phase one, which we talked about from North Street to Broad Street, that project is budgeted to be about $15 million. We to date have spent and or obligated, including tonight, just over $11 million of that 17 million. Now remember, that does not include the 3.1 million that we're going to use for water pollution control for the sanitary sewer upgrade. It also does not include the $5 million grant that we're hoping to get from Missouri Department of Natural Resources for that emerging contaminants system that we're going to put in. Just kind of looking at that leaves, so 15 million for project one, that leaves $2 million left for the interchange. We know that we are in the process of a cost share application with Missouri. Our portion of that will be about $1 million. So that leaves 1 million kind of left for us of that 17 million general obligation bonds that we have issued. This is where it becomes really important to kind of talk through one of the projects that Kristen will be working on as an interim. We'll be looking at our financial policies and kind of revising those and where we stand and what council's determine how council would like us to look at how we use our fund balances. You hear us talk a lot about our fund balance and we say things like it's very healthy. So we are sitting on about $8 million of fund balance in the general fund. That is very healthy. That's about 80% of our operating expenditures annually. However, as Councilmember Latari pointed out, we certainly don't want to use one-time money for operating expenses. Mm-hmm. But if there were something that were to come along and an opportunity that were to come along, say, a grant opportunity with the federal government. One of the reasons it will be good to update those financial policies will be so council can move on that and can act on that if they want to use some of that fund balance to match some federal dollars or some state dollars. We have a healthy balance in our capital improvement plan fund, so our half-cent that we have out there. We also have a healthy fund balance in our transportation plan. Again, wanting to be very mindful of how you use those one-time dollars and wanting to make sure that it is really for my recommendation. My final recommendation leaving here would be to use that fund balance for truly transformational projects in this community. I do think that Rethink McGuire and the bridges over Highway 50, including Holden and including the McGuire Street Bridge, are those types of transformational projects for this community. You also have two other bridges here in town that you own. So we also have the Railroad Bridge, which is on McGuire, and you also have your College Street Railroad Bridge. So the city owns both of those. Bridges are expensive to replace. That Railroad Bridge is something that we have taken a look at, and as we continue to look for opportunities with the federal government and the state government, we know that that is a need that we have in our community as well. So with that, are there any questions about The one last thing, I meant to say this when I was doing my presentation earlier. So we have GMP 1, which you guys are probably putting together. You're gonna have another GMP that comes after that, right, for the rest of the project. I did want to share that phase 1 is about 80% of the project. And we are about 80% of that $15 million. So we're sitting just about right. GMP, we're still waiting from Missouri Department of Natural Resources on that $5 million grant. If that does not come through, that project just doesn't happen. And so then we'll move forward with the phase 3, which will be the intersections of North and then to Ferguson Street. So we're sitting that we looked at the numbers. That's why we felt comfortable including that bid alternate for the stormwater over by Colton Street. So any questions about where we're standing with the Rethink McGuire and kind of where my head was at and the information that I will pass on when I leave here about how we will work to match federal dollar opportunities and state dollar opportunities.
And I thought the bridge over the railroad tracks belonged to the railroad.
No, we just have to ask them for permission whenever we do anything.
All right.
And remind me, please, when we think we'll hear about that grant? What was the time frame?
So we thought we would have heard by now.
Yeah.
And so we have been having some back and forth. Burns and McDonald has been having some back and forth with Missouri Department of Natural Resources. They have concerns about our selection process, since it is technically EPA dollars that's flowing through Missouri Department of Natural Resources. They want to make sure that we're following federal procurement processes, which we are. But that's one of the reasons we're pulling it out to be its own project, so we can give them some assurances that we will be following those and making it separate from, this project. It's not getting that GMP is not getting kind of mixed up with GMP 1 and some of the other work we're doing over there. It'll be clean. So that's why we're doing that. However, they still continue to drag their feet a little bit. So I have drafted a letter that I'm sending to the director of Missouri Department of Natural Resources and saying that we really need an answer. I have also talked to our lobbyist, Jay and Ryan, and they will also be reaching out to the director of MDNR to ask what their timeline is and when they plan on letting those dollars loose. Thank you. That's a good question. Thank you. Okay, nothing else. I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to City Council, and I want to say thank you to the department directors and all of the employees here in the city of Warrensburg. This is my first city manager job, and I have learned a whole lot. I have loved serving this community, and I am very excited for the future of this community, and I will certainly be keeping tabs on you through Facebook. I've already signed up for the Rethink McGuire newsletter, as I strongly encourage everyone else to do as well. This is an amazing community that you all have here. I am certainly telling folks to look at this job. It is a great place to be a city manager. It is a fantastic place to serve in local government. And so I just want to say thank you to all of you, the directors, all the city employees, as well as all of the community partners who I've worked with over the last several years. So it's certainly bittersweet to be leaving, but I know you all are going to make amazing things happen as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for getting us to the point where we are
Yep.
today.
Absolutely.
Couldn't do without an amazing team.
Closed session. Motion to close part of this meeting pursuant to section 610.021 of the revised statutes of Missouri relating to, well, sealed bids and related documents until the bids are opened, and sealed proposals and related documents or any documents related to a negotiated contract until the contract is executed or all proposals are rejected.
I so move.
Excuse me, Kushner,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Latari,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Schuler.
Yes.
Barbara. A non-city of Warrensburg